Help me welcome Robert. Thank you, brother.
I'm an alcoholic named Robert. Hi, buddy. Broken heart, yeah. I was sick then. Physically, I didn't realize it. And about 10 weeks ago, went to see the doctors. It takes a lot for me to admit I need help, and certainly to go to a doctor. And went to a doctor a week later. He told me, when I saw him and he performed this procedure, he told me within a week I'd have to have open heart surgery and replace a valve, a damaged valve. And I'm in complete denial, really, about that. And a lot of fear came over me initially, and because of one thing, I realized that after they cut me open, I was probably going to have some drugs to start with. That was the biggest fear, it certainly was. And had no idea what would happen, but through a lot of prayer, I was so at peace when I went in there. Thank God for this program. It's instilled a lot of faith in me. I was talking to John before the meeting, how many things we've gone through. It's inevitable that if you don't drink and you don't die, you're going to become an old timer one day. And there's a lot that we go through in life, and a lot of tragedies, but a lot of good times as well. And that's just life. The very thing I used to run from, the most challenging thing I had to deal with when I got here to these rooms was to deal with life. I didn't want to drink anymore, certainly. As the old saying goes, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. But did that mean that I was through? No. I had no idea at that time what my condition was. I thought I had this bad habit. I didn't know. It took me some time and some education to realize I got a chronic illness that requires daily treatment. And that involves much more than just coming to meetings. And that's all I could do when I first got here, was just come to meetings. And I was thinking about it on the way up here, how, people have taught me to check my motives. And I guess it was 37 years ago, I was on the way to a meeting up here one night, live in Rockingham. My motive for coming was not to just come to a meeting. My motive for coming initially was thinking, there might be some girls at this meeting. They weren't exactly hitting the meetings in my hometown at that time. And then about halfway up here, I was driving by myself, and one of the things I know is, and I've heard it plenty of times, and I've experienced it plenty of times, an alcoholic alone is in bad company. And I was in bad company on the way up here, and my motives were purely selfish. And I started thinking, I don't have to go to that meeting. I could go, and I think there was a place called the Underground or something at that point in time, that I could go there and maybe get real lucky, so to speak. And again, I was just thinking that how insane my thinking was for so long after I got here. Why you people told me, not to make any major decisions the first year I was sober. Why? My best thinking wasn't right, I look back at some of that. I remember there were a lot of old timers in the rooms when I first started going as a 23-year-old, and I remember going to a meeting, it was a discussion meeting on sponsorship. And one of the things I had heard is that to look for something in someone, their recovery, that, as far as asking for a sponsor, the qualities I would like to have in a sponsor. And I told them, I said, I haven't seen anybody that had anything I wanted. I'm telling all these old timers, they just told me, keep coming back. And I did. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from those guys, and thank God. You know, our program is based on attraction rather than promotion, and that what they had to offer me was very attractive to me, because by the time that I got here, I was pretty much all alone. I was isolated, and you know, one of the things I've learned is that with this progression of this illness, toward the latter stages, you know, there's that deal of isolation. And I'd gotten there at 23 years of age. And I thank God that I hit bottom for the first time at such an early age. You know, I always felt different. So coming in these rooms, I was 23. And in my hometown, most of the people were certainly in their 60s. I think Harold was 10 years. He was the next to the youngest, you know, other than me. And thank God for those people. They told me to keep coming back. They welcomed me. They accepted me. And I think that unconditional love just kept me coming back. Because the people that I had associated with, they weren't like that. You know, I realized, talk about a rude awakening, I realized when I got to the rooms and started having to take a look at some of the people that I thought were friends, I come to understand they were as friendly as they could be, but they weren't friends. You know, I knew nothing about true friendship. I didn't know how to be a friend. You know, it's too self-centered. The people that I drank with, that I used with, they were just like me. You know, they used me, I used them. We used alcohol and other drugs, and that was basically it. And it was really scary for me. I stayed in an apartment by myself when I first got sober, and you know, I'd go to meetings, I'd go to work, go to meetings, I'd come home, I'd sit there, and you know that a thing of not having any control over what comes to our mind. Man, there's all kinds of stuff haunting me about my past. My past, you know, with the progression of my drinking and other drugs. There was a loss of control of my life, a loss of control of my behavior. And there was so many things that just haunted me when I got here, and I couldn't turn my head off from them. And that self-centered fear, I don't know if y'all know what I'm talking about, but that I was so eat up with, I couldn't fix on my own. And just stopping drinking wasn't going to fix that either. It just seemed to magnify it, you know. At one point in time, my active drinking, active addiction, you know, I thought I was a pretty good pool player. You know, I was pretty good. And then, if there's anything we're good at, we're going to do it a lot, right? And I used to get a lot of attention from that, and I, you know, make money. And but there were some people that would want to back me up after I got sobered up and go out, and I could not shoot. I was just terrified. I was so terrified. That magnifying mind of mine, that everybody was watching me. It was just intense, you know. And I talk about being dis-ease. I was, and it's just a chronic symptom of God. Thank God that you know, I was thinking about speaking. I knew there's probably a pretty good crowd here, and how as a kid in school that I would, you know, find excuses not to go when there was a book report to give, have to get up in front of the class, something like that. And I think looking back at my childhood, there was so much fear in my life, and that was predominant thing. Now, other than love, my family loved me a lot. I hear a lot of horror stories from guys that I work with, not all of them, but a number of them that did not have the same kind of family life I had. But I had a wonderful family life. There were 5 of us kids. I had an older brother. I've got an older brother. twin brother and sister that 4 years younger. And my mother, she had her tubes tied and ended up having my younger sister when she was in her 40s. She thought she had a tumor or something. I'm kind of thinking she did, but with her, she's tried these meetings and, she's been in active addiction for over 30 years. It's pretty rampant in the family. My parents are not, they could drink like normal people, so to speak, but after I got into the rooms, I found out my father's father was alcoholic, and I never knew him, but genetically I think I was predisposed to have this thing. And I know I'm one. I'm the real deal, as I like to say, because from the first time I picked up that first one, it was on, Within 2 weeks, and I don't know if I was 12 years old or 11, I don't know. It was on. And it was on until I got to these rooms. And it seems, when I tell that story, it almost sounds like it's nonsense, that it's, if I was doing it every day. And it was every day. That's how important it was for me. It certainly had a profound spiritual effect on me right from the beginning. It certainly did for me what I couldn't do for myself. It made everything all right. I was eaten up with a lot of insecurity. I always felt less than. And never as good as, I don't know. That was never instilled in me and my family, but it was there. And I know that's just a self-centered fear I've got. I've got it. And I need to treat that with 12 steps. And that's that spiritual thing. And that I tried to fix with so many other things when I got to these rooms. I tried fixing it with relationships, material things. I was thinking about it, how the first year I was sober, 1981, the first year I was sober. Now, I'm not a rich guy, don't get me. I'm rich in a lot of ways, but as far as wealthy, financially, I'm not. I'm not that guy. But 1981, $10,000 was a pretty good bit of money to me then. And I charged $10,000 worth of jewelry when I first got to the rooms. And that first year, I was trying to fill that spiritual void. And I tried to fill it with relationships. I tried to, as we know, I tried to fix the outside to make the inside better. And it just wouldn't do it. It wouldn't do it for me. It wasn't a fix. I know throughout my act of alcoholism, my act of addiction, I was always looking for the fix. It was important to me, and I pursued it. That love and family I had took a back seat right from the beginning. And at 12 years old, I didn't eat with the family anymore. I didn't eat at the dinner table. I just kind of isolated back there in my room. I had a twin brother and sister, like I said, 4 years younger than I am. And I didn't pay them much attention. I actually resented them getting the attention. And it's that crazy thinking again, how I always wanted to be the center of attention, but when I got it, like I've got it now, I don't want it, type of thing. It was like that then. And we got a small home. I grew up in this house. There were 7 of us in there. And recently, within the last year or something, I just recently moved back in there. And I'm staying in there by myself. And there's been another room added on, a bigger room, and all this. And I'm thinking, this house isn't big enough for me. By myself, this is not big enough for me. And that's just my thinking. It's not enough, right? But it is. It's exactly where Tim P., who goes to meetings, he knows my family. He knows my family life. He knows some of the stuff that went on in the house. And he knows, that my, I guess within the last 4 years or so. My mother died there, my father, my brother, my younger brother. All three passed away. And that's just some of the things that, we deal with in recovery. But he said, there's when he found I was moving in, he said, Robert, there's a lot of bad memories there, aren't there? And I said, yeah, but there's some good memories there too. That's what I choose to take a look at. And to thank God for this way of life. It's one of the things I got to do before these people died was to make my amends. And not only make my amends, but to live my amends. And, I didn't, no regrets, no remorse when they passed in that regard, that I did not do that. So with being around a little while, I got the opportunity to do that. Whereas when I was coming up, I was always looking for what they could give me, what they could do for me. And I sometimes say I was spoiled, but I think I was just loved that much. My family loved me, and I grew up down around the house. There's my grandfather's grocery store, and I grew up around there. I worked there. These older guys from the Vietnam War that was going on at that time, they were hanging out around there. And I'd see them drinking. They were drinking, seemed to be having a good time. I was attracted to that. And certainly there was some other guys, older men drinking they would drink some of the aftershave lotion, probably peach tree. I can't even imagine that now. But yeah, that's what went on around there. I hung out with the older guys, and it wasn't long. I started drinking. At 12, I was drinking. I was drunk for the first time at 12, blacked out for the first time at 12, and I got sick, threw up, and it was just like that. That pattern repeated itself so many times in my life. Not only that, I lied and covered up about it, and that pattern followed me, But I liked it. And even though I got sick, it wasn't long before I was doing it again. And I remember it wasn't long after that alcohol is definitely my drug of choice. Don't get me wrong. Whatever drug was around town, I was always washing it down with alcohol. And just so happened, my next door neighbor, much older guy than me, was the biggest drug dealer in town. And, it was late 60s, early 70s. And I began to do that. And from the time I was 12 till I got here, that's what my life consisted of. And one long drunk-a-log, that's all it is. I used to do well in school up until then. Didn't do well in school after that. I used to do well with my family up until then. I didn't do well with my family. This loving family that just wanted me to be a part of right from the beginning. It severed that. That's that spiritual thing. It disconnected me from my loved ones. And I used to say that I had a good time in the beginning. I used to have a good time doing it. The longer I'm sober, the more I realize it wasn't a good time. It was not that good of a time. Not when it separates me from my loved ones like that, And it did. It became the most important thing in my life real quick. And that was it. And I think especially recently, when my mother passed, and I realized how, when I'd say I had a good time, and it took me away from her, and my dad and my brother, that was not a good time, It really was not. There was a deal of we will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. Now, I get that. I've got that. And thank God for fifth step, thank God for the steps, the making amends process, making amends to myself, living this thing, because, you know, I told you my past haunted me. I had a hard time living with myself, period. That low self-esteem grew to self-hate by the time I got to the rooms of recovery. And it's really difficult because I was 12 years old emotionally when I got here. You think about that, you know. And even when I started at 12, I wasn't a healthy 12 years old. My brain basically being hijacked by my alcoholism, by my addiction, emotionally stunted, never dealing with life on life's terms, never dealing with reality. You know, I used to hear even at school the deal of people who do drugs, you know, they're escaping reality. And I thought, nah, I just like to get high. You know, but the truth is, I was escaping it, man. I wasn't experiencing my family. I wasn't doing well in school. You know, I wasn't doing well in relationships. Man, it was just me and the people I hung around with. And one of the things I had a hard time with when I got here was taking a look at how many people I influenced to go down that path, you know? Wow. You know, I think God had had me in mind when he put me in the position I'm in, working. It certainly wasn't my doing. You know, be able to work toward trying to help people because, you know, I helped hurt a lot of people. I know that. I know that for a fact. And some of those people didn't make it. Some of them didn't make it. So, you know, that's what I've had to deal with. And thank God I've had to face reality. I've had to take a look at the truth. And, you know, being in recovery just makes me take a look at reality. I didn't graduate from high school. Couldn't go to school, man. Could not go. I could go to the parking lot, and that was it. That was it. You know, we were going to the woods, we were going to somebody's house, we were going to the pool room. That was it. And not a whole lot of education going on with that other than school of hard knocks. That was it. Didn't graduate. Failed my senior year. ICT. I couldn't even pass ICT, where you got to have a job to complete. I got fired from my job, and I had this job where all I had to do was sweep the floor. I couldn't sweep the floor. You know, the cotton mill, I could not do it. It was my supervisor became my sponsor when I got to rooms of recovery. You know, neat experience, but yeah, I couldn't even sweep the floors. I mean, I couldn't show up at work. When I did, we were out there in the parking lot again, you know, doing what I did, which was be under the influence. That was it. I was always under the influence. And I told you alcohol was primarily my drug of choice, and alcohol is a drug, right? That was my drug of choice, and I always did that, but there were so many others that, and again, I'm grateful. I think it helped to get me to the bottom a lot quicker, and again, I'm doing things I swore I'd never do. I'm breaking and entering, I'm a thief. Even on the jobs I'm supposed to be on, I'm a thief. That's what I would do. I mean, just steal stuff. Wouldn't even need it, but I'd be stealing. You know, that's just me. And I don't know. After I got out of school, I was living in an apartment by myself. From the time I was 12 until I got here, I was also a drug dealer. That's what I did. Not much of one. You know, I certainly didn't make any money. I didn't have any money when I got here. But I was a drug dealer, and I couldn't do that at the house. My parents, there weren't any cell phones back then, and the phone rang off the hook. People would come to the door. I mean, they're knocking the door down, and at nights, when I stay with my parents, I'm coming home, have to come through that door. My mom and dad sitting on the couch, and I would, I never looked at them. I just come on in, and when I would, I know I was disappointed. I know I was hurting. I used to hear them as a kid with me. They would argue about what to do with me. My mother, she would enable me, and I would use her in that way against my dad. And, that's just what I did. Tried to manipulate her in that regard. Caused a lot of fights. I'd hear them and about what to do with me, but it didn't matter to me. It didn't matter to me because the most important thing was to drink and use other drugs. The year I got out of high school, I got an apartment on my own. Like I said, I got tired of coming home. My dad ended up getting me a job at this bag plant, and it was unionized, and thank God, I automatically signed up for that because they got my job back for me a couple of times, and after I got fired, and they got me into treatment a couple of times when I got ready for treatment, and it wasn't long before I was ready for treatment. Staying in that apartment, isolating from those people I associated with. At the end, every day, I can't tell you anything other than every day, that's what I was doing. And physically, I was deteriorating, and mentally I was as well. Last 2 years, I tried to quit. I was trying. I could not pull off a day. And thoughts of suicide came. Thoughts of suicide came for me. And thank God, for the grace of God. I'd already about died multiple times. So by the time I got to these rooms, I started looking at it wasn't luck that I survived. It was for the grace of God I didn't die. I was okay with that. I was open-minded about that. I started realizing that I wasn't so special that I survived it all, that wasn't anything special I had done. So I called my mother one morning. That was in 1981. I told her I needed help. She used to bring me, I could throw a rock from my home group to the place where I hit bottom at. And I often go out and think about what it was really like there. And y'all kind of got the G-rated version of what it was like there. It was a nightmare for me. It was a lot of pain, and good times certainly were gone. And that deal of what I've heard here, it was not doing for me, it was doing to me. And it quit. It was not a pain killer anymore. It's a pain causer. And I couldn't get away from it. And I was forced to reach out for help, and I ended up going into treatment. And on the way there, this is the thing. On the way there, I've got this woman I was in this relationship with. She was 11 years older than me. She'd never been in trouble in her life. And but she got some trouble as she started messing with me. And when I was in treatment, she ended up going to prison. She never even had a speeding ticket or anything before she got involved with me. And there was some. I told you I was a drug dealer. Trying to be, want to be, maybe, and. These people had gotten busted with a lot of drugs. I was supposed to be driving them, and I didn't get to go, and they thought I set them up. And anyway, I was already paranoid, and seemed like a good time to go to treatment too, so I went. And I went. And my motives weren't exactly pure, but hey, whether you feeling the heat or seeing the light, but I think most of us feel the heat, I was feeling the heat. I went. It's co-ed. What is that about? It's a co-ed place, Thank God for somebody to call me, right? And so yes, I wasn't distracted enough. And I really wanted to quit. I was sick and tired of doing what I was doing. I was sick of it. I was going to get drunk one last time on the way up there, and I did. And then I tried to sneak some into the facility. That's how sick I was. I wanted to quit, but I was going to sneak some in there. And that's just the state of mind I had. Stayed there 28 days. I went to meetings when I got out. Stayed in that apartment by myself. They told me to keep coming back. I just kept coming back to meetings. And I could make it 3 months. I'd always go back out. I was hanging around places I probably shouldn't because that's all I knew. I'd go home, I'd go to the bar, try to go shoot some pool, maybe get lucky again or something, And that didn't work too good. I think it's complete, total, unconditional surrender is what we're talking about. Truly admitting we're powerless, my life become unmanageable. I could tell you that, but I couldn't do a whole lot of backing that up by my actions, because if I'm powerless, no need to be hanging out with at bars, In and out of rooms. I managed to pick up a year chip, go to over 365 meetings that year. Picked up a year chip, and it was really bad. It was a really bad time for me. The whole year, I was untreated. I certainly was taught to pray. I was praying. I couldn't get any relief, man, until I started doing some steps. I couldn't started doing any steps until I actually went back out after a year and was able, again, by the grace of God, to make it back here after 9 months of being out there. I always heard it got worse. The amount didn't get worse, but the disease got worse. My mental state, my spiritual condition got much, much worse. I never thought it would get worse than what it was. I'd always heard about progression, and I picked up this year chip, and it got really intense. And once again, I was able to reach out for help. I ended up going to a facility I'm working at today. They really didn't want me to come there. They said that I was too close to them. They really, thank God they took me in, and I was October 3rd of '83. I just celebrated 35 years on the 3rd of October. And those 35 years have gone by really quick, I'm going to tell you. A day at a time certainly means live one day at a time. Enjoy the journey, because it's a short one. And but for the last 35 years, it's been a good run. It's been a real good run. I've met and got connected with so many friends in the rooms. I was all alone when I got here, and so many friends. That's the neat part. That's the spiritual thing for me. When I went from that isolation to that connection with other people, I started feeling a part of, other than a part from. I knew what y'all were talking about and why you encouraged me to keep coming back. I think at 3 years sober, I ended up getting married she was an adult child of an alcoholic, and it wasn't a very healthy marriage. But again, I have a hard time surrendering, so I stayed in that thing for 18 years, and we've got a gorgeous daughter out of that. She's 28 now. I started bringing her to meetings when she was 3 months old, and I brought her up until she was 12. I really I just loved her so much. I wanted her with me, and she was always come in and sit, and she was never a distraction, anything disruptive in the meetings. All the were really considerate of her, and she just became a part of it. And but that marriage came to an end. I had to deal with a lot of different things in recovery. Like I said, life is going to happen. That showed up, and ended up moving back in with my parents, and that's pretty humbling, to move back in with them. But it was, thank God, it gave me an opportunity to spend more time with them and me. Like I said, they were always there for me. I thank God I was able to be there for them. My mother, which was my greatest enabler, she, right from the beginning of my recovery, she wanted to do for me. And I said, no, you've done enough. You've done enough. I need to be self-supporting through my own contributions. I need to do that. I need to give back to you. And I always, since I've been in recovery, I've always enjoyed giving, and it's important to receive too, but it's been easier for me to give than it is to receive. But I need to, it's a two-way street with that. I am just like my father. My father, I remember we coming up as kids, my father, we're watching movies, and I'm sitting there watching, and he's got tears coming out of his eyes. He's watching the movie, and I started doing it. I started recognizing I was getting better in early recovery when I started watching Andy Griffith and started doing that, I said, man, I'm getting better. Something's changing in me, and I remember distinctly being down on the square and watching this guy come down the sidewalk and people kind of avoiding him. He had wet himself, and it's pretty, anyway, I had this feeling of compassion for this guy and empathy for him. And I said, something is changing in me, Started having these feelings and started being other people-centered and more God-centered. I said, thank God for the steps. I believe they are definitely the principles that made my recovery possible. After 2 years of being around the rooms, I finally conceded to my innermost self. Powerless over my alcoholism, my life has become unmanageable. I never understood this concept until I got educated. I've got an illness and that I need to treat it daily. And when I started believing that, when I come to believe that, I started getting better. And it's my responsibility to do that each day. Doesn't matter how long I've been sober. All I've got's today, right? 35 years gone, right? That's the truth. I've got today. And I've learned that right here. I've learned it the hard way, we're talking at the meeting the other night about anonymity being the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, and that, we're all the same. Nobody any better than, nobody any less than, all the same. And it's been neat, because when I got here, I was the one that was less than. I was just like a lot of people I hear. I was that guy that was less than. And just because I've been sober a while now, doesn't mean I'm better than anybody either, I've got today, and I need to treat everybody with that same compassion and empathy that, like that guy coming down the sidewalk, This is a chronic illness, and I just need to be reminded of that thing of attraction rather than promotion. The people that were there for me when I got there, when I got here. That's been so important to me, and I thank God. Again, I've become one of those old timers. I just, been around a little while now. But again, I don't want to get old timers disease where I feel like I've got it, I've arrived. I'm not, I don't try not to get like that, because I say it a lot, because I believe it to be true that my disease is not impressed with how long I've been sober. It's not. I got today. That's it. And it's really based and contingent on what my spiritual condition is for this day. I was so self-centered when I got here. I've got a relationship with the love of God now, thanks to principles of recovery. I was taught to make a decision each morning upon awakening, turn my will in my life, over the care of God as I understand Him. I was taught that. I started practicing that. That's my first waking thought, That's pretty neat. And everything I know about living, about recovery, I learned right here. So many good examples of recovering people. I've watched people go through things. They've been good teachers for me, and I thought, how in the world can they go through what they've gone through? And they just go through it, and I've been able to go through it, and it's built my faith up and allowed me, Whereas I don't know. This has been a pretty good run. I've enjoyed it. I enjoy meetings. I enjoy the fellowship. I enjoy the spiritual nature of this thing, the principles that I've learned that I need to keep right in front of me, this deal of acceptance and of other people, of life, forgiveness. I need this stuff in my life. Teach me how to live instead of just avoiding life. I don't have to run from reality. I get to experience reality today, and that's pretty neat. And I just about was going to call Blake, and I'd already talked to Mark. I've been this week. Like I said, it's been about 10 weeks ago that for this open heart surgery. I've been like a new man since then. I was feeling good before then. Actually. Just weren't able to do anything, and mentally and spiritually I was really good, but this week something has really elevated my blood pressure, and had ended up starting Monday. It's just gotten down actually today, and it's kind of like a little concerned what's going on with that, but it's I told Mark, I said, look, don't worry about it. I'm gonna come up here. I'm not gonna call Blake. I'm gonna come, and I need to be there. I need to do what I'm asked to do in program, and everything I got good in my life, I got as a result of being sober. Everything, man. I'm blessed. I am truly blessed. I have this amazing life. I've got an amazing job. I look out here and there's so many guys I've worked with. Had the privilege of doing that, get close to these guys, man, and they allow me to do that. And that's a miracle. I was talking to Barry H. the other day. I said, man, can you believe we're doing what we're doing? I cannot. on my best day, I could not make that job happen. You know, I'm about to get kicked out of that facility 35 years ago during this time of the year. I was about to get kicked out of there. Matter of fact, they'd already told me to pack my bags. You going? And, I had to bag them. I bagged them, and I never seen that guy turn around too many times. You know that when he tells you to go, you're going. You know, and something happened. I thank God for that complete turning point in my life right then. That I made a commitment to recovery. Yeah, and I've been trying to make a commitment every day since then, and you know, it's been good, and it keeps getting better. It really keeps getting better. So, Blake, thanks for asking me to come up, and I appreciate y'all listening, and we're getting ready to party, ain't we? Thanks for letting me share.